Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater's Guitars and Gear. This time out, our special guest is guitarist Frank Hannon from the band Tesla. My good friend Nick DiVirgilio sat in for me. He conducted the interview with Frank. Check out what they had to say. I hope you enjoy the interview.
Hi, I'm Nick DiVirgilio, sitting here with a very special guest today, Mr. Frank Hannon.
Hi, how you doing?
Good to see you. Welcome to Sweetwater.
It's great to be here.
And this is your first time to Sweetwater, yeah?
First time to Sweetwater, but not my first interaction with Sweetwater by any means.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, I have a recording studio at home. It's called Red Hawk Productions, and also I play guitar in Tesla, for those of you who don't know.
We'll definitely talk about that,
yeah.
for sure.
But when I'm home, I do my recording studio business, and I've purchased a lot of mic preamps and professional audio from Sweetwater.
Great.
Professional audio gear. You know, the Universal Audio stuff, the Vintech stuff, the microphones for my recording studio. But I also realized that you guys have quite a great guitar collection.
We do. Yeah.
And being a guitarist, you know, I started scrolling around on the website there, and I found out that you guys carried some really nice instruments. So I had an occasion where on a cruise ship, Tesla was playing this cruise ship, and the ship started rocking pretty good, and my acoustic guitar, which was a Gibson Hummingbird, which they made a limited run of a few years ago, fell over and the neck broke off of it.
Oh, man.
So I did some looking around, and I found out that Sweetwater had several of the Gibson Hummingbirds in stock, and my sales guy Dennis was kind enough to go up and grab one and grab a couple of them and play through them and pick one for me. When I was impressed with that, you know.
Nice.
That kind of service. So
Did he pick the right guitar for you?
he picked a great one, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So I like Sweetwater. Sweetwater's cool.
There you go. Cool. Very nice.
All right.
Well, like you did say, you play for the band Tesla. You've been around for a long time, made a lot of great records over the years.
Oh, thanks.
And you've been playing guitar for many years, too. Why don't you give us a little short, brief history of how you started playing guitar? I read, if this is true or not, you broke your leg and you were hanging out one summer, and that's how you kind of picked up a guitar and started jamming that way?
Yeah. Well, I came from a pretty wild and crazy upbringing life. You know, we had a lot of parties at our house when I was a kid. My mom was very creative and still is very creative. And
nice.
We had a lot of bikers and a lot of crazy stuff happening at our house. So when I was 10 in 1976, when Frampton Comes Alive came out, that record really turned me on to the whole electric guitar live concert thing.
Yeah.
And I started playing those licks and staying up late with all the grown-ups and playing guitar when I was 10 years old. But I did break my leg on a dirt bike when I was 12, and that forced me to really just be laid up with a cast and practice with headphones, listening to Frampton Comes Alive and all the live albums of the day. Live albums really is what got me into music. Jimi Hendrix live at Monterey Pop, you know, Aerosmith live bootleg, Ted Nugent, Rick Derringer live, Johnny Winter live, all those guitar live albums of that era were...
Most of those live records sounded great back then, too, didn't they?
Yeah, they were just so full of energy, and the electric guitar and the live audience and the headphones when I was laid up at 12 years old with a cast on. I was going to those concerts in my head, you know?
Yeah. And were you self-taught? Or you just listening and copying what you heard?
That's right, yeah. Self-taught, except for being that I was young at the time, there was older kids that, you know, I'd go hang out at music stores and stuff, and I'd watch older kids play, you know, and there was some kids that knew pull-offs, you know. So they would teach me pull-offs. I'd go, show me how to do that.
Nice.
And then when Van Halen 1 came out, there was a guy that knew how to do the hammer-ons, and he was doing it. And I said, man, show me how to do that. So I would learn from the older kids, you know.
Right. That's right.
And, you know, he said, just sit there and do 1, 2, 3. And it eventually gets faster and faster.
That's awesome. It's a good story.
So that's how you learn when you're a kid. Go watch older kids play.
I also read, tell me if this is true or not, that your very first concert was actually Johnny Cash?
Yeah. When I was 10 years old,
That's a cool first concert to go to, I think.
My mom is very cool. My mom took me to see Johnny Cash when I was 10 years old, yeah. Statler Brothers. But what really did it for me was when my mom took me to see the film Monterey Pop Festival.
Okay.
And that's when Jimi Hendrix did Wild Thing and he lit his guitar on fire.
Right.
Janis Joplin was singing Piece of My Heart and just,
going for it,
Ball and Chain. That concert in 1967 was a pivotal concert, and luckily they captured it on film.
So you're actually here in Fort Wayne doing a show tonight with Tesla.
That's correct. Tesla has a new album out now.
Yeah, called Simplicity, correct?
Simplicity is it, yeah.
Nice.
We went back to our roots and we recorded live in the studio. We wrote songs and practiced the songs before we went into the studio. So by the time we got into the studio, we could keep it real simple and just play live.
Go for it. Nice. You guys have been around for a long time, since the mid-'80s, right? About 1985 or so you started?
Pushing 30 years, yeah.
Nice. And you've made a lot of great records.
Thanks.
For sure. And now tell me if you agree with this statement or not. After your first couple records, you guys got signed to Geffen pretty quick into your career, correct? And kind of started climbing up the ranks pretty fast.
It wasn't really overnight. We worked really hard. We
sure.
opened for just about everybody. Alice Cooper, David Lee Roth, Def Leppard. We were the support band for many years.
Nice.
Yeah.
And is it true that when you guys put out your record, the Unplugged record, the Five Guys acoustic record?
Yeah, 5-man acoustical jam.
That's it.
Which
was that really the start of the whole Unplugged kind of thing, or is that not really how you like to describe it?
Well, it was the start of it for that era.
Right.
Yeah, for the early 90s, when grunge or power glam metal was really popular. It was a departure from that. We don't like to take credit for, Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles were doing acoustic sets,
For
but
sure.
For us, it was a departure and it was a fluke. It was a pure accident. We basically just did it out of necessity because all of our gear was locked up on a truck and
Really?
we wanted to fill some dates and we were playing acoustic at radio stations.
Right.
And the song Signs went over really well acoustic. Anything with a D chord in it really works on acoustic.
Yeah, when it showed that your songs could stand up in that setting too.
Yeah. It was a real stroke of luck for us.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Then you went on and did a couple more records after that. Mm-hmm. You guys kept getting more and more successful, and lots of touring, I imagine, too, at that time, right?
We worked solid for 10 years, from 86 to 96 without a break. We got pretty burnt out and angry with each other and tired of just being around each other. We had some personal problems, and we broke up for a few years.
Right. During that little interim, though, you got the chance to do a side project, right?
I did a solo album, a side project of the band called Moondog Maine that did pretty well on the radio charts. I also do a bunch of solo albums now, still to this day. I'm working on one now currently.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And then Tesla, you guys actually got back together in the early 2000s.
We got back together and realized what a great thing we had, and we've been consistently keeping it together ever since.
One thing I did find very interesting that I read is that you guys actually started your own record label, so you're kind of in charge of your own thing for the most part now, making your own records, producing your own records, yeah?
Yeah, everything, everyone knows the industry's changed.
Big time.
And I find it a blessing, there's been a lot of people talking in the press, oh, rock is dead, blah, blah, blah. I think it's alive and it's better than ever, really, because musicians can be independent and you can produce your own music. You don't have any, producers or people telling you what to do. You can do it yourself. And I think it's great. And that's what we do. We produce our stuff now. We have some great people that work with us. We have a great artist named Dwayne Surface who puts the graphics together. I give him an idea and he just does it on his computer, you know.
Nice. And do you record those at your own studio as well?
Yes.
So everything's in-house.
I have my own studio. Brian Wheat, our bass player, has a beautiful studio in downtown Sacramento, California.
Okay.
And between he and I, we put it all together.
Nice. Yeah, you mentioned Sacramento. That's where you're from. You're a Northern California guy. I come from Southern California.
Yeah.
Are you a baseball fan?
I like baseball. I like sports. I like to go to the
fan.
Sacramento River Cats game.
Nice.
That's about as most baseball I get, though.
Okay, cool.
I'm too busy working on my guitar licks, yeah.
There you go. So after you got back with Tesla, you're very busy with that again, but you also had some time to do some solo projects during that whole period as well in the 2000s, right? Tell us about some of those.
One of my albums is called Gypsy Highway, and it's a record that I wanted to do where I wanted to pursue storytelling with singing and writing real personal, learning how to become a singer.
Yeah.
And that record is more of an acoustic, folky record that I played all the instruments on: banjo, mandolin, spoons, anything I can get my hands on. And recorded in my living room on some gear that I got from Sweetwater.
Nice. And what was the music that inspired you to do that kind of record? Just stuff that you grew up with?
Well, the Johnny Cash stuff that I grew up with when I was young, Bob Dylan. There's some female artists that I was inspired by. Jewel tells a great story in her songs. Sheryl Crow. That singer-songwriter storytelling thing is what I was influenced for on Gypsy Highway. The next album I did is called Six String Soldiers.
That's a very cool project. That's some great guitar players you played with on that record.
Thank you. I was very blessed to have Dickie Betts from the Allman Brothers. He's my father-in-law.
Really?
And yeah, my wife's daddy is Dickie Betts. Nice. And he was visiting us one day, and I got the nerve up to ask him if he would come into my studio and jam on one of my tracks.
Nice.
And as soon as he came up there and laid down this solo, as soon as I started talking to my other friends like Pat Travers and Rick Derringer and other guitar guys, and I told them that Dickie was on the project, they were like, "Oh, okay, well, we'll be right over." Because, Dickie's a legend and
Sure.
he's an amazing player. So I was very blessed to have Dave Minichetti, Rick Derringer, Pat Travers, and Dickie Betts all be on the Six String Soldiers album, as well as Mike Ariza and Jeff Sandoval from Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Right.
who are some very talented musicians as well.
Yeah, some great songs on the record. I checked it out a lot. It was
Thanks,
really cool.
man.
Yeah, very nice.
Thank you very much. My new record I'm working on, I don't have a title for it yet, but it is definitely going to feature a lot of my 80s influenced guitar style. Okay. And a lot of my singing has developed a lot lately, and I'm going to be doing probably all the lead vocals on the new record.
Great. Very, very cool. Well, with all that being said, let's get to your gear.
Okay.
So you've been playing for a long time. When you first started playing guitar, what was your first guitar? What did you start playing on?
We had an acoustic laying around the house that belonged to my uncle who never came home from Vietnam.
No, I'm sorry.
And so that was my first guitar. Then I started saving my money. I got a paper route and did some lawn mowing, and I found a Les Paul copy. And some other guy, there was some guys, like I told you, our house was pretty wild and crazy. People would be leaving stuff there. A guy left an SG at my house one time, and I fell in love with the Gibson SG. Is my favorite guitar.
I noticed a lot of your YouTube videos, you have a cherry Gibson SG you play quite a bit.
This is a Gibson SG Standard. It's got coil taps on it, and I really enjoy this guitar. It's super light, feels really great.
So, going back a little bit, how has your gear evolved over the years? I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, did you have giant racks full of gear, that kind of typical thing back in the day? And then what's it like now?
It did. My gear has come full circle now. I started off just like every guitar player with a guitar and a cable and a couple pedals, wah-wah pedal, fuzz box, and an amp.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I use today.
Okay.
Is a guitar, a cable, a tube screamer, a couple Boss pedals, and a Blackstar amp. I did go through a phase in the 80s, like everybody, where we had racks of gear. For a while, I had ADA endorsement there with the ADA preamps. We had a bunch of different endorsements. We had Randall amps for a while. So I've owned and played pretty much everything. In the studio, we use Fender amps, Marshall amps, Vox amps,
Sure.
Blackstar now. We've recently discovered Blackstar, and these amps here are just super high quality tube amps that are everything that you could ask for from a Marshall or a Fender or anything, all just rolled into one.
Nice.
And as you can see, I got all the knobs just set straight. Everything's just set flat here. That's how I can tell if an amp is a great amp. You don't have to tweak it too much. Just turn everything halfway straight up and then it just sounds good. And the Blackstar is high quality. The quality's great. We haven't had any problems with them on the road, and very good company.
Great. All right, well, thanks for telling us about the gear. It sounds really great. Good luck on your show tonight here in town. And the rest
Yeah.
of, how long is the rest of your tour going to go for?
We're going to wrap it up in Las Vegas in a couple weeks.
Right.
And then we're going to take a little time off. I'm going to finish my next solo album, and then Tesla's going to pick it back up in January. And hopefully keep pushing the Simplicity album all through the year.
Great. We have this kind of weird 6 degrees of separation thing. Your drummer, Troy Lucetta,
Yeah.
played with a guitar player named Mark Bonilla back in the day.
Yep.
And Mark Bonilla was produced, Mark Bonilla was in a band called Toy Matinee with a guy named Kevin Gilbert.
I remember.
And I played with Kevin Gilbert for a number of years before he passed away, and then was kind of the caretaker for his studio for a while. So Mark and Troy and everybody kind of, I've met Troy a couple times over the years, but we never
okay.
really talked that closely. But since
Well,
you're here,
come tonight. He's a super nice
super
guy.
nice guy. Yeah, maybe that'd be great.
Yeah, you know, we're all connected, man. All of us musicians, we're all.
It is a small world.
It's a small world, and we're all related. It's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah,
well,
nice
cool. Well,
to
great
talk
to
to you,
meet.
man.
Thanks for coming to
Yeah.
Sweetwater and sharing your story and your gear with us. And
Yeah.
have a great show tonight.
All right, I'll play you out. This is a classic Tesla riff. This is the modern day cowboy riff. Oh, everybody always asks me how to play it. It's really super easy, guys. It's just a hammer on. That's all it is, but it's this fast. So you just hammer it on and speed it up.
No.
There you go.
Well, thanks for watching this edition of Guitars and Gear. I'm Nick DiVirgilio, sitting in for Mitch Gallagher.